Hello and welcome to the Art Center Sarasota's Salon de Art. And today we will be talking about Agnes Pelton. Patricia Rockwood was kind enough to come up with a presentation for her, and I will be assisting. My name is Elizabeth Goodwill. I am the Education Director here at Art Center Sarasota. And I want to welcome you all to Salon de Art. Today's date is Friday, June 19th, so Juneteenth, and we will be talking about the wonderful artist Agnes Pelton. I'm going to take over the screen now, and you guys can enjoy. All right, screen share. Patricia, it's all you now.
So we're starting with one of her representative images. She did this at the beginning of when she started to do her big abstractions. This was in this is in 1929, and she did this. This is called Incarnation, and she did this actually in direct response to one of Georgia O'Keeffe's flower paintings. I'm going to read you a quote by Michael Zakian. He was the curator of exhibitions at Palm Springs Desert Museum in 1995. When he did a exhibition of her work, he said, quote, "Interested in themes of creation, growth, and radiance, Pelton translated favorite subjects, a glowing star and opening flower, into life-affirming images of rare beauty and resonance. In many ways, her paintings resemble the art of her contemporary, Georgia O'Keeffe, only more colorful, more spiritual, and more imaginative," unquote. Agnes Pelton almost always conceived of her abstraction paintings pretty much in total, in a dream, a vision, or a meditative state. She kept really detailed notes on how her paintings came together, and she kept voluminous journals, which are now in the Smithsonian Archives of American Art. She said they seemed to appear as a whole in her mind in what she called waking visions. This picture is the earliest known photograph of her. She was born in Stuttgart, Germany in 1881 of American parents. Her mother was a music student at the conservatory there. When Agnes was born, her father came from a wealthy Louisiana family. He didn't really have a real job. He was kind of a dissolute person. And he died probably of a morphine overdose when Agnes was only 9. She was kind of a sickly child. Her mother took Agnes back to Brooklyn, which was her family home, and supported them both by opening the Pelton Piano School in Brooklyn. When Agnes was 14, she was enrolled in the art program at Pratt Institute, and she graduated at 19. This picture is of her in her studio, where she, at Pratt, she was fortunate to study with Arthur Wesley Dow. Another of Dow's famous students was Georgia O'Keeffe. O'Keeffe and Agnes were parallel in other ways too. Agnes was older than O'Keeffe by about 9 years. They both studied with Dow, O'Keeffe at Columbia, Agnes at Pratt. Agnes had her studios at Greenwich Village and produced her first independent works there, what she called her imaginative paintings. This, what you're looking at now, this was called Vinewood, and she entered this in the famous Armory Show in 1913. This show was organized by Alfred Stieglitz, famously the husband of Georgia O'Keeffe. This was one of two works that she entered in that show. She was starting to become well known around New York City then, and entered in solo and group works. Around 1911, Kandinsky published his famous work, The Spiritual in Art. This is a quote from his, this is a quote from Blavatsky's very long treatise, one of her very long treatises, that formed the basis of her work on theosophy. The new torchbearer of truth will find the minds of men prepared for his message, a language ready for him in which to clothe the new truths he brings, an organization awaiting his arrival, which will remove the merely mechanical, material obstacles and difficulties from his path. The earth will be a heaven in the 21st century in comparison with what it is now. And let me see, when did she write this? I think it was around 1900.
1889.
1889, okay. The Key to Theosophy. Blavatsky and the theosophy was an idea of that there should be kind of a universal thought for all mankind, that all religions, that there should be kind of a synthesis of all religions, that all men should be in a kind of a brotherhood together. Kandinsky was a part of that in the art world. He sought to represent in art what Blavatsky was a proponent of in religion. This is one of his works. Kandinsky also, in his writing this treatise of his, The Spiritual in Art, talked a lot about the correspondence of art and music. This is another thing that Agnes Pelton felt very strongly of, the coordination of art and music. And one of her, this painting of hers, the Meadowlark Song, was something that she felt that she was painting. She felt that she was painting the song of a bird. And later on, we're going to hear the music of a composer that felt that he was putting into music the song of the meadowlark. Where am I here? Back to Agnes's biography. She lived with her mother until her mother's death in 1921. She then lived for a time and had her studio in the historic Haywood Windmill on Long Island, which is near Southampton. And this was owned by the grandfather of a woman named Maury Coates, who was the author of a book called The Pelton Papers, which is available for Amazon. I ordered that book, and I was hoping that it would be available to show you today. However, Amazon has informed me that it will not arrive until next Tuesday. but I can show you what it looks like. You can see it here. That's the cover, the Pelton Papers. It's a fictionalized account of Pelton's life. It's a novel about her life, and it's been authorized by her surviving family. She never married or had children, but she did have cousins, and with their support and all of her journals, as I said, in the archives in the Smithsonian, this woman, Mari, has written this book. So in 1932, she moved to Cathedral City, California, intending a short stay, but she stayed 30 years, which is the rest of her life. This image is her arrival in Cathedral City with a couple of friends. And that's in 1932. And this is in her studio in Cathedral City. Unknown photographer, and you can see there on her easel one of the paintings of the desert. She supported herself in that windmill by painting portraits of usually well-known people. In California, she supported herself by painting pictures of the desert that tourists would buy, because she didn't have an inheritance or anything like that. And this is another portrait of her later in life. She was about 50 when she moved to California in 1932. And let's see, and she had first encountered the desert environment when she'd been invited in 1919 to visit a patron of the arts in Santa Fe and Taos, New Mexico. Mabel Dodge Lewin, this is one of her desert pieces, typical of the type of landscape that tourists would buy. This is from one of the surviving pieces, or from a gallery in California. Let's see, Mabel Dodge Lewin was one of the patrons of the arts that ran a kind of retreat. O'Keeffe also knew Mabel Dodge Lewin in Taos. She ran a sort of salon out there. One of the things that Pelton wrote of the desert, this is another quote from her. She said, "The vibration of this light, the supernatural spaciousness of these skies enthralled me. I knew there was a spirit in nature as in everything else, but here in the desert, it was an especially bright spirit." She joined the Transcendental Painting Group, but she did not really affiliate herself with any particular group.
So here is a short video about the Transcendental artwork show. I think it's showing 3 artists from the Sun Valley Museum in California.
My name is Courtney Gilbert. I'm the curator of visual arts at the Sun Valley Center for the Arts. And the exhibition that we have up this summer is called Western Light Ecstatic Landscapes. When we tell the story of art history in America, we tend to focus on New York as the place where art history took place. But lots of interesting things were taking place in the American West at the same time that artists were working in New York during the 20th century. I think that one of the things that drew many American artists to the West was not only the light, which artists have been trying to capture on paper or on canvas for generations, but also a sense that there's a greater freedom, social freedom in the American West, that artists could come here and be free of kind of the traditional social structures of the East Coast. One of the things that these three bodies of artwork share is the idea that light can be a way of expressing the spiritual. One of the bodies of work that we have on display in the exhibition is a selection of paintings by a group of artists who came together in New Mexico in 1938 as the Transcendental Painting Group. And they were artists who united around the idea of abstraction as a way to kind of transcend, literally transcend material reality in search of the spiritual. Many of the artists were deeply interested in a religious movement called Theosophy. So we have works on display by the two founders of the Transcendental Painting Group, whose names were Emil Bistrom and Raymond Johnson. Both of them work with forms that represent the sun or the moon, mountain structures, layers of desert sand. Working in New Mexico, they were really, I think, affected by the light and also the palette of the desert itself. And for them, this light was a way to capture what they saw as the spirituality of the New Mexico landscape. We have work by a few of the other artists in the Transcendental Painting Group, including William Lumpkins, who I think more than any of the other artists approached the landscape almost from a geological point of view. Florence Miller Pierce, she was the youngest member of the Transcendental Painting Group and had a very long career. Agnes Pelton was the oldest and also the most established member of the Transcendental Painting Group. She was deeply interested in theosophy, particularly in the role that light plays in theosophy and in being able to use light in her paintings as a way to express her spirituality. We have three paintings by Pelton that are on display. The earliest is called Radiance, and it really, I think, shows her interest in Agni Yoga. It's this beautiful abstraction of orange and white and yellow and blue flames that are kind of in a vessel form. We have a painting from 1931 that she made called Voyaging. And she made it the year before she moved from New York to Cathedral City. I think it's really about this upcoming move that she was going to make. It's this enormous blue sky over a gentle waves with a bell ringing in the corner of the painting. And she captures the idea of sound coming out of the bell and these rhythms of color. The third painting that we have on display by Pelton is from 1952. It's called Idyll, and it marries the realistic landscape painting style that she used to make paintings that she sold to make a living with abstraction. It shows two arcs of red and green light emerging out of the desert floor above kind of this cloud of white light that's rising up from the sand below. And in the background are these beautiful desert mountains. And I think that in that painting, more than any other, she was able to express her belief in the American West and in the deserts of the American West as a place for spiritual transformation. The second body of...
All right, so here we're going to get a nice little slideshow of her work and listen to The Lark Rising by Ralph Vaughan Williams. Bear with me.
So we're ending with this quote from Agnes Pelton from an edited book. She says about her pictures, "These pictures are like little windows opening to the view of a region not yet much visited consciously or by intention, an inner realm rather than an outer landscape."
Agnes Pelton. I'm gonna try and let Donna in one more time, which is not going to happen. Okay, so the next salon is going to be murals versus graffiti, and Donna Lerner and I will be presenting it. So what Donna and I talked about, she's going to pretty much start with, we have cave paintings and we have graffiti art, and we have how mark making on surfaces and walls has gone through time, and what's the difference between graffiti and mural art right now. And so she'll be looking at both the Sarasota artists. So she's going to go and drive around and take some pictures of our local murals, and we'll talk about those. And we'll probably talk about some of the more well-known muralists that we know from, around the world right now, like Banksy, or various other ones that are, causing a stir. So, and that's what we're going to be talking about. What we're going to do now is I'm going to say thank you for everyone who came, and we're going to do a discussion at this point. And again, we're thankful that Patricia Rockwood was able to come up with this wonderful presentation for us. So thank you on that. And at this time, you can unmute yourself if you would like to, and I will unmute you also. And Art Center Sarasota is able to continue doing this thanks to donations from donors and friends and members and whatnot. So if you love Art Salon, please continue to support us by coming to the events, coming to book club, and if you can, please donate. So thank you. I'm going to put it back on from screen share and put us all back in the same room. Hey guys, you can unmute yourselves now. Got it?
say, Patricia, that was a fabulous presentation.
Thank
Really
you.
enjoyed the
Thank
mix
you
of
so much.
images and words and history and even film. So thank you for that. Agnes Pelton was new to me, so I really doubly appreciate it.
Thank you. It was amazing to do, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Those images were really interesting, and they were so much of the time. I can't figure out how to get my face on there, and you don't want to see it anyway. It's Judy. And having had the incredible opportunity and blessing to have lived in Santa Fe for almost 25 years, I can speak to everything you said. It's transformative, and I've said numerous times, my world has changed by living there. And it was not an easy time. It's not an easy place to live, but it is worth every second because you're so much in the land and so much a part of the light and that sky. The only other place I've ever heard that it's even close is in Mongolia, in Ulaanbaatar. So it's just, and I know a lot of people have been to Santa Fe and been out west, but that whole time with George O'Keeffe and Mabel Dodge Lujan, I mean, that was a real group of forward thinkers of the time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the transcendental painters, I mean, I'd never heard of Agnes Pelton.
How do you all feel like work? Are there painters painting in that sort of transcendental style today?
I'm sure there is, not necessarily the transcendental, but I was talking to somebody the other day that when I was running the salon in the physical, almost every artist we talked about came from a spiritual point of view. And you can tell it in the work. There's something extra in the work. And I don't think transcendental was kind of a doorway into this spiritual, being aware of and working with spiritual realms.
Definitely. Thank you, Judy.
Mm-hmm.
So Patricia, what moved you to pick Agnes as your topic of choice?
Oh, I'm trying to remember how I found out about her. I think I just, I think it might have been a random Google search, and I just came across one of her paintings and then followed it back. That must have been it, because I certainly didn't know her name. She's so obscure, you know. I think that must have been it. I think I must have just, that must have been just a random thing. Yeah.
I know it's and I know we're all hoping that we can that you'll actually get to go see the one at the Whitney right now.
Yeah.
It's postponed.
Yeah.
And you know, her shows have been, it's interesting because she's had more of a kind of a resurgence.
Mm-hmm.
And her work has been shown more recently, at least since you know, it was probably when probably about the, like, you know, beginning of the 2000s, that all of a sudden she popped out of the woodwork. And I wonder if just someone came across her or discovered her work somewhere, and that kind of, you know, the usual slide of, oh, how did you not see this, or this article or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always interesting to see how, and I always have this like weird feeling whenever they do these ones where they're like, oh yeah, so this is a little known woman artist, and I'm like, Okay, great. But it's great to see that she is getting her due, and hopefully we will get her in the art history books too, because she is a very worthy addition. I have to say thank you so much for introducing her to my world. So, and the fact that being from New Mexico for so long, and then not actually knowing that her work was out there, is, I feel kind of ashamed. So.
Yeah, it's just to me, it's a little scary how short our memories are
Yeah.
with things like that. Being human beings, we just have such a short span of time to learn everything,
Yes.
and we can't possibly learn everything there is to learn, and that's why it's so important to keep records and to venerate our elders and all that good stuff, and
And keep teaching each other like you're
keep
doing.
keeping each other right. Yeah,
I mean, she's exactly why we have Salon. So
yeah, yeah. But Hilma af Klint, is another one
mhm,
who was only discovered because um, she she was she kept her own work secret in her time because she knew that nobody would understand it,
mhm,
and said in her will, this can't be displayed until 20 years after my death, and then 20 years after her death. Even then, people tried to display it, and it took 40 years until it was ready. People were ready to see it.
Who is this?
Hmm?
Who
Helma,
is it?
Helma de
Hilma
Klint.
af Klint, who was just at the Guggenheim.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah,
There
and
was a woman that we talked about, somebody presented probably 3 years ago, and I don't remember her name. She was 1700s, 17 or early 1800s tapestry artist that European, never heard of her. She had a very long name, and her work was spectacular, and she was incredibly well known at that time for doing these beautiful tapestries. They were quite lovely, actually.
oh,
So, there are all these people, as you said, Patricia, we have quick forgetters.
yeah,
And I believe what we need comes into our sphere when we need it.
yeah.
yes,
And
you're right, Judy.
See, and this is another reason of why we record these and are now being able to share them with people all over the place. So it's not just our small little group that we get to enlighten. It is the world now. No big shoes to fill on that one.
Right, right.
But
But it's true that this like Agnes has a spiritual bent, and sometimes the spiritual aspect comes to the forefront at different times in civilizations march forward, and sometimes it fades away. So maybe this is the time for it, So
no, I think it definitely
there you go.
resonates. So
Yeah.
yeah.
and those paintings, all of those very delicate, atmospheric kind of pieces of art, and it's true of any art, I think, when you're right in front of it, it's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at least we're introduced to it here.
Yes.
Mhm.
Are those oil paintings, all of them?
Yes, they are.
And Patricia, did you say when she died?
1961.
Oh,
So she was in her 80s when she died. You
79.
said 79.
Is any of her work to be seen locally or nearby or someplace in Florida?
I don't think so. I think there are 45 paintings in the Whitney exhibit. And I think there are some owned by various people in California. Probably some in other places. This woman who wrote that novel, Mari Coates, she mentioned that the way that she was introduced to Agnes was that one of her relatives, I think her grandmother, had a portrait painted. So there are probably various portraits done by her around New York City area. I don't know where the abstractions are.
Yeah, it would be
I don't know
interesting.
how many there are in total. My research is not complete.
The Whitney did have a press release that goes with the show that I did find on YouTube, and so the curator there was actually the same gentleman who you pulled one of the quotes from,
Yeah.
and whose name I can't remember off the top of my head.
Zakian?
Yes, yes.
Zakian?
And he talked a little about her, and it was just like this kind of introduction to the Whitney's show. But it was nice that they were making a big deal of it and trying to get it open. So.
Yeah, he seems
what's
to have
nice,
the most information.
what's nice is now that we're spending more time on YouTube and internet and Google searching, all these esoteric and little known people are coming up. So we're introduced to things and artwork we never even knew was there.
Exactly.
That's right.
And so on that line of thinking, if anyone has any artists that they would like to cover, you're welcome to give me a call and discuss. Donna is going to be next in 2 weeks, and then after that we don't have anyone scheduled yet. So if anyone would like to, please let me know. I'd love to, every time we do one of these, I learn so much, and I get to I love it. It just is like kind of immersion. So thanks.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, could I just briefly say, if you haven't seen it, there's a call for murals. Since our next talk is on murals, there's an open call for murals from the city and from the Arts and Cultural Alliance. They've gotten some money together for that, and with the focus on recovery and all of our stresses around the pandemic and other social issues going on. So if you are a muralist or you know one, the close date is the 22nd.
Now, for this piece, are they requiring that you have done a mural before, or you can just have the concept and know how to do it? Because for a lot of public art, you have to have the experience or have done one first.
That's not the case here. So they're, of course, wanting to, so here's how I'm on the selection committee. And, it's going to be, it's a little more ad hoc than the public art committee. And so what you'll see, they're asking for 3 examples of your work, which could be paintings or, the type of work you normally do. And just a short description about why you'd like to be doing this. And then they'll call in the artist to meet, and that's when they'll talk about concept. And then you get another period of time to develop your concept. It's not very long. You have to be in a hurry, I'm afraid. And you have to do the production during the summer when it's hot.
Well,
but
I
have
shared it, so that at least went out to certain art. I did send it out to the local muralists in Sarasota. So.
That's great, but it could be a first-time opportunity if that's what you really want to do, and you'll get paid for it. It's not going to be something that will pay for your entire grandchild's college education, I'm afraid. But I mean, there's real money there. There's also a call for walls. So if you know someone with a building in Sarasota County that would like a mural, then please
so
let
funny.
them know. Something's
Hey,
fun.
if you got an extra wall hanging around somewhere, make something.
I vote for the Embassy Suites, that great big wall there. If you know someone at the Embassy Suites management, please tell them they need a mural.
Oh, that would be great. I look at it way too often. It's just like down the street.
I know.
So, there's also other call to artist news. If anyone didn't know, the big show, which is the next show at the Art Center, is coming up. It's our big prize of the year. So receiving for that is going to be after the 4th of July weekend. So,
And there'll be 7 gazillion entries.
well, we hope so, because it is a national call, but it's also going to have we're going to spread out the receiving so that people can we're pushing that you submit online, but if you don't want to deal with online, you can bring it in person, and you'll have 3 days to do so.
And online is really easy.
Yes. Thank you, Judy.
Way easier than coding something in.
Yes, it is.
Especially if it's big.
Yes. And anything else from anyone today? Happy
Book
Friday.
discussion Monday. Book discussion Monday.
Oh, yes. So, of course, we can't forget our Jerry Saltz. So I'll see you guys. Hopefully I'll see most of you on Monday for our book discussion, and we'll be, yay! Oh, it's so good. And we'll be doing, I think is it chapter 6, Ron?
7. I think it's 7.
Yes, 7. Recognize convention and resist constraint.
And it's really, really, really good, which I'm surprised.
Well, have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Enjoy the blue sky and the weather, and don't get too sunburned. So,
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks for organizing this.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.